In this forecast, two remaining rounds of severe thunderstorms are expected to impact the southeastern U.S. this week, with the lingering potential for flash flooding with high rainfall totals. A threat of a snowstorm is also developing across the Ohio River Valley and New England corridor over the remaining week. Everything you need to know on Project Gladiator. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Project Gladiator Wednesday update. I am recording this on a Thursday, so it is more like a Thursday update. Sorry for being a day late. I had to take care of some things yesterday, but I am glad to be making this video for y'all today. I hope everyone is having an amazing week so far, but we're going to be starting off with the jet stream pattern, and I'm going to be covering the weather for the rest of the week, mainly between January 25th to around January 28th. So again, let's start off with the jet stream pattern and what we are expected to see as far as the jet stream pattern, and generally where we are expected to see the weather for the rest of the week. So the main concern that we were watching for the vast majority of the week was this much broader trough that's kind of just been sitting across the Rockies. As of right now, it's kind of just been sitting here, hasn't really been moving all that much, which is allowing for a stationary front, which is turning into a little bit more of a cold front as of now. But that allowed for a little bit of a stationary front to kind of just sit along this area and lead to an insane amount of rainfall as well as rounds of severe thunderstorms. They were a little bit more on the weaker end side because we didn't really have a lot of surface instability, but we do have that stationary front, which is going to begin to move over the next couple of days as this trough begins to move and actually develop cyclone genesis. We also have this one shortwave trough here, which is also going to rotate out and move off towards the north, and we shouldn't really see too many impacts from that in the near future. Maybe some rainfall up across some northeastern portions of the United States, but overall not too much. The real concern is what is expected to come from the trough when it actually does move, because after it does move, it is expected to move into more flat terrain and actually be able to develop cyclone genesis, meaning that it is rotating, and it is also expected to become somewhat negatively tilted. A lot of models recently have been indicating that it may stay a little bit more neutral, with potentially it being a little bit more negative. I don't have the ISO bars on, so I can't really see the axis of the trough too well, but it does look like it is expected to be a little bit more neutral to somewhat negatively tilted. So overall, we aren't really expected to see anything too crazy, but this trough is looking quite scary, and it is looking quite potent for severe thunderstorms. The main issue and main uncertainty is going to be the amount of instability that we're going to have with this. So overall, as we go into the 27th, this is going to be the main risk that we are expected to be watching out for. But then in the lower levels, where we have the surface low that's going to be off to the north, we are expected to see northward advection of the trough into a much colder environment, and that is going to potentially develop the risk of a snowstorm that is going to move along with the trough as it moves into a lot of the New England corridor and Ohio River Valley, and that's where we're going to be watching for snow. But more on that information later. And then something else I'm not really going to be covering all that much in today's forecast is going to be this atmospheric river that we are going to continue to see impact the Pacific coast, and this is going to lead to quite a bit of rainfall, almost nonstop rainfall for a lot of the Pacific coast, and potentially the threat for some flooding further towards Washington and Oregon. So that's overall what we are expected to be looking for today. Taking a look at our storm timing and where and when we are expected to see our rain showers and potentially our severe thunderstorms, as well as our snow showers for the rest of this week. Let's start off with what we are seeing as of right now. The current model run does have us set at 4 p.m. EST for this current radar scan, or simulated radar scan. So as of right now, what we are watching is going to be this first round of storms, or I think maybe the second or third round of storms, depending on how many have come before it this week. But this is going to be one of the final ones that we are expected to see this week. In fact, the second to last. As this system moves off to the north, there we are expected to have just one more round, and this is going to potentially be the more potent one, unfortunately, and potentially lead to a little bit more riskier storms we are expected to see that trough begin to move and become quite potent across a lot of this region, and it is going to look a little bit more scary. But I'll get into why storms may be a little bit more on the lesser side and why there's not really all that much of a reason to worry. But we are expected to see these storms across a lot of the southeastern states, starting as a bunch of rainfall across the Central Plains, across Oklahoma and southern Kansas around 7 p.m. Or not 7 p.m., around the 26th, and then into the 27th, we are expected to see those turn into storms. The main region that we're going to be watching for storms is going to be potentially up into Tennessee, possibly, but mainly around Mississippi, the Florida Panhandle, Alabama, Georgia, and again the Florida Panhandle, and then that system is going to move off into the north. On the 28th, we are expected to see that system move across a lot of the eastern coast and lead to the potential for a lot of snowfall across a lot of the more northern regions like the Ohio River Valley and a lot of the New England corridor, and that's where we are expected to be watching for snow. But timestamps are in the description if you're curious about more in-depth forecast on snow, because I will be covering it later on in this forecast. And then we can also take a look at the timing for a lot of the rainfall that we may see across the Pacific coast, even though I'm not really going to be going too depth on this in this forecast. We are expected to see almost constant rainfall across a lot of the more northern Pacific coast, with it being lighter at times. But overall, it is expected to be nonstop. We may be able to see a little bit of a break between the 30th and into the 31st, but around the 31st, it should continue from there. So overall, that's when and where we are expected to see our rainfall. Taking a look at our instability, or in other words, our fuel for severe thunderstorms across this region. On the 27th mainly, I'm not really going to be focusing on the 25th with a lot of those storms that are ongoing as of right now, or as of the time recording this, because they are dying a little bit more as the sun begins to go down. But the main event that we are expected to be watching out for the rest of the week is going to be the severe thunderstorms across the south. So taking a look at the fuel that's going to be in place for a lot of these severe thunderstorms, a lot of the values are indicating that storms may potentially be a little bit more on the lighter side, but still potentially hazardous to people in the region. We are seeing definitely ample fuel to support severe thunderstorms at the surface level. However, instability is looking like it is going to be a little bit more on the lighter end side of things, but definitely, again, still ample for the risk for maybe a few tornadoes across this region, probably just one or two, potentially some damaging wind gusts, as well as the possibility of some hail. Those are going to be the primary risks that we are going to be watching out for the 27th. In fact, the SPC does currently have a day 3 outlook, a day 3 slight risk for a lot of the south, and that's, again, going to be the primary thing that we're going to be watching out for. I should have a daily forecast out on this by the time day 3 does roll around, regarding on how the models trend over time. Again, on the 27th, we do see the probability for severe thunderstorms across a lot of the southeast. Taking a look at our energy helicity index values, which is basically the general idea of what the tornado risk may look like across this region the day of the severe thunderstorms on the 27th. And overall, it's looking pretty fine as of right now. Again, there are some uncertainties in place, definitely some uncertainties, especially with instability and how much instability we are expected to have across this region. However, those of you that may be worried by the potential for tornadoes, fear not. There is still the possibility for maybe a brief tornado or two across this region. However, overall, GFS models, keyword GFS models, and I'll get into why that is, do indicate that there is the possibility for maybe one or two brief tornadoes across this region. However, it is looking a little bit more on the lower end side of things. But again, the reason why I mentioned GFS model specifically, which is the global forecasting system, they do take into account the entire world for forecasting. So overall, they aren't really as accurate as a lot of our more isolated models are just to the United States and are more in depth and short range forecasts. So we will have to wait for a lot of those better models to roll around to see what they are indicating. But overall, our GFS models are indicating at least the possibility for 1 or 2 brief tornadoes across this region. Taking a look at our total rainfall accumulation and the risk for flash flooding that we may see across this region over the next couple of days. Already we have been seeing the risk for flash flooding across a lot of this region. In fact, if I do turn our warning map back on, you can see that we do have a ton of flood warnings across a lot of the southeast, back into Texas, and across Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, but nowhere in Florida. So again, we are seeing quite a few areas that do have already seen flooding, and that is expected to continue to accumulate over the next couple of days, as we are expected to see very widespread rainfall with those two systems. And the risk for flooding is expected to add on to that. We are expected to see the possibility of maybe upwards of 1 to 2 inches, potentially getting up to 3 inches, but overall it should stay around 1 to 2 inches of rainfall, which is definitely going to lead to the possibility of some flash flooding in some areas. And then across the Pacific Northwest, again, as I was mentioning previously, we are expected to see quite a bit of rainfall up there, so we may see the possibility of some flash flooding along the Pacific coast as well. We can actually take a look at what the WPC currently has issued as far as the risks for flash flooding across the United States. As of the day of recording this for today on the 25th, we are seeing a dual slight risk area for the possibility of some scattered flash flooding with some of the remaining storms ongoing for some of the Appalachian region as well as along the coast there. However, into tomorrow, we are expected to see a fairly large slight risk for flash flooding across a lot of the deep southeast for Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and southern Alabama, and into the Florida Panhandle, as well as a marginal threat for Oklahoma into northern Texas. Then we also do have a slight risk for flash flooding across the Pacific coast. And then for our day 3 outlook, again, 2 regions that we are expected to be watching out for flash flooding is going to be across the East Coast, where we do have a slight risk for our day 3 outlook on the 27th for northern Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Alabama, generally around where those 2 states border each other. And then we also have 2 marginal threat areas for along the Pacific coast there. Taking a look at the possibility for our snowfall across a lot of the United States, starting off with the 26th and the 27th before we get into the really big deal for snowfall for the rest of the week. We may be able to start off with some snowfall for some of the Midwest across Wisconsin, as well as some heavy snowfall for a lot of the New England corridor there from northern New York into Maine, and then we also may be able to see some spotty snow showers across a lot of the Rocky Mountains, which is typical for this time of year. However, as we get into the 28th, this is really when things are expected to kick off. Around the 28th into the 29th, early next week, we are expected to see a insane amount of snowfall for a lot of the Ohio River Valley and into the New England corridor. This is the GFS model, so it does tend to make things a little bit bigger than what it may be in reality, especially with snowfall totals. So overall, I don't think we're supposed to be getting 14 inches of snowfall across northern Pennsylvania. I'm not sure how well that's trending with other model runs, but overall it seems pretty unlikely because this is the GFS models. However, I would say a good mean for the amount of snowfall that we may see across this region is potentially going to be anywhere from potentially 6, 7 to potentially 8 inches across the main snow band that we may see extend from Indiana across northern Ohio, northern Pennsylvania, and a lot of the New England corridor. We can also take a look at what the WPC does currently have issued as far as heavy snowfall over the next couple of days. So for today, as of the day I am recording this on the 25th, the WPC does currently have a small area issued for a portion of Maine for some heavy snowfall, greater or equal to 4 inches, as well as a high risk for southern Colorado into northern New Mexico there, with some of the snowfall that we're going to see across the Rockies. And then for day 2, Not really anything I can notice too much, but we do have the probability of some heavy snow that may reach greater or equal to 4 inches across Washington into parts of Canada there. And then for our day 3 outlook, we do have a slight risk for southern New York into northern Pennsylvania, but we don't have access to our more longer, less accurate winter weather outlooks from the WBC. So this is currently what they have issued, just 3 days out. But you can see for day 3 there, does indicating that that may be the start of our snowfall. Before I end the video, I do want to talk about the GoFundMe for Project Gladiator. So the whole reason that Project Gladiator was started is to turn a Jeep Gladiator into a insanely powerful and an insanely capable storm-chasing beast to gather information and data that will likely create breakthroughs in meteorology and severe weather forecasting inside of some of the strongest tornadoes. So basically what this will do is it will anchor itself in the path of a tornado and gather information as the tornado passes over, and hopefully that tornado is going to be a strong to potentially violent one, and it should be able to survive. So if you do want to donate to the cause and help with meteorological breakthroughs, the link to the GoFundMe is in the description. Now that I've told you the weather, please go down to the description and check out the socials for Project Gladiator, and join the Discord for any updates on Project Gladiator. If you live in any of the areas I covered for this week, please stay weather alert for the time being. If you notice anything might have been wrong with this forecast, or you'd like to make a suggestion or ask a question, please leave a comment. I do read them and I do reply to them. Two other channels I highly suggest you check out are One Nation Weather and Weather Watcher. Weather Watcher even makes forecasts for Europe if you're interested in those, and hopefully I'll be able to see you guys potentially on Friday with another forecast.